and this is, all. I would say that, of course, our societies are educated. They go to school. They're, for the most part, most people are very well informed. And given that, we have the internet and technology now, so that's even opened up more doors.
Yeah, and I think that scares the death out of the elite.
Yeah, and the point is you're right, and it's through shows like this where we're trying to educate people. We're not we're not in the business of hurting people. We're not promoting any kind of violence or anything like that. But it's a ideological struggle, and we have to do it through intelligence, through communication. And I think that's probably the greatest weapon that we have is the truth. These falsities can easily be identified if people just, for 1 minute, just look behind the nature of these different systems. If you look at communism, you will see that the underlying philosophy is derived from Darwinism. And if you look at our educational system, you can see that fundamentally the science is derived from Darwinism and evolution. They are teaching this stuff as a fact, when in fact it's not proven. They are teaching that we are animals, that we are that life is a struggle, that we can only progress through this sort of conflict. So at the root of both systems, whether you want to see rampant capitalism or communism, you will see that the underlying factor is Darwinism, and that's why we want to educate people that fine, learn about it, but there's also another option, that there is a creator, that people should look within themselves. They have souls. We all come from Adam and Eve and from a creator, and that we should look at each other in a humanitarian way. You're right. At the highest levels, if we look at our systems, if we look at the world systems, it's nothing but conflict. If you go and open the internet page, go to any internet page, any news portal, and you'll see nothing but constant news about either wars, massacres, murders, anything. It's always, the negatives are always highlighted. Maybe that sells. Maybe that's what they focus on. But people should still know the truth. Yes. People should still be aware of their societies. Otherwise, someday we may end up being in a situation where the things that are happening in communist countries and in the Middle East may come to our back door, and then we realize, well, what were we doing all this time? Then it's too late. So that's why I wanted to focus the show on an analysis of communism and capitalism and its practical applications today. I want to turn now, Jerry, to the things that are actually going on in the Middle East with regards to the struggle between. It's kind of ironic, but both systems are kind of fighting against each other here, and there's a struggle that is highlighted in Syria. Syria, as you know, is the Assad regime is essentially, if you look at their history, they're Ba'athist. They all been educated by the Russian institutes, and their military officials and high-ranking officers all go to Russia to get their training. Russia sells them equipment, military gear. So essentially, it's a communist-run system, but under an Islamic face. So they've put this Islamic face on Syria, but rather, if you look at how the system is run, you will notice that it's completely communist system. And now you have, and this can be seen, and the evidence for this is that, look, you have NATO, who wants to go in and make changes there, or at least, promote some change there. And then you have Russia and China, two countries that are vetoing this. So it's so obvious now that you have a clear divide between the communist bloc, the Shanghai bloc, and now NATO. And what's ironic is actually both systems are operating under the same idea of class struggle and struggle in nature. So this is the clearest example, and how ironic that both of these systems are now clashing in Syria, and you have both sides wanting to vie and win in that country. And as a result of this, how many people are actually dying there? How much suffering is actually happening there? How much suffering is actually happening in the entire Middle East because of these prevalent systems?
Yes, and the people that are dying, they don't. A lot of them don't know why. They don't know why this is going on, and the ones that do, they don't know how to fix it. So there's there's a big clash, and I think it entails many things. And like you said, the communist influences that are in the area. You have two different superpowers that are basically interjecting. Actually, three, because the U.S. has been involved lately. So, it's really a terrible situation over there. And there's no short order fix to this because a lot of the beliefs are so deeply ingrained over there in the different people, and trying to get communications opened up between a lot of the different factions there just seems like it's such a daunting task.
No, 100%. It's and really, Jerry, we could make this show so long. Tell you what, this conversation is so interesting, and I mean, I have so much material prepared that we can actually make this a 3 or 4 hour show if we wanted to, and longer. And I think in the future we'll revisit back this topic, and we'll keep talking about these subjects so that people can become aware of how real these ideas are in their lives, and they just don't know it because it's just so stealth. And so it's our job to re-examine these and to retell the stories and to continuously try to communicate and make them aware.
There's so much, in almost every country around the world. The way the society has evolved in the last few centuries, and even in the last few decades. If you look at the last 3 or 4 decades, there's been so many changes that have went on. And if you look back 40 years, the majority of the people that know about these things now, back then, 30 years ago, people didn't know about this stuff. They listened to the news, and they were pretty much, we didn't have the internet.
Yeah.
So people weren't tied together, and the information they got about other countries was what they got on their own news.
Yes.
And at that time, if you go back to the 70s, there was so much propaganda. It was such a power struggle, between Russia and the U.S.
Yes.
and China and the Middle East and England
Yes.
and the U.K. and it's just, there's so much that back then that was just hearsay and speculation and opinion. And now people have the internet. They can go on the internet. They can research these things. They can talk to people overseas. I mean, we have A9. We have the Building Bridges TV show, and they have people from all over the world on there. And this is such a wonderful thing, because 40 years ago you couldn't do that. You'd have had to have got on a plane and flown to a studio somewhere. You couldn't even do it on a telephone and record it. And then put it on the radio. So the tools we have today, there's today more than any time in history, there should be no reason for so much of this to be floating around, because people have so many ways to get educated and to know what's going on everywhere without having to resort to the mainstream media news, or to bought and paid for newscasts, or to newspapers that are biased to capitalism, or to one country or the other, or one regime or the other, or one religion or the other. People can get out, they can look, they can research, they can find this stuff out.
That's 100% true. That back even as far as I would say 15 years ago, people couldn't really get on and get information. We just had to accept whatever the television was telling us or what the radio stations were telling us. And most of these entities are, of course, controlled. They are free to a certain extent. But a reporter certainly can't go out and make any kind of report that he or she wishes that's relevant to our communities and societies. It is all edited. They have editors. It all has to fit within the philosophy of that station or wherever that they are reporting that from. So, the claim that we are a free society, for the most part, it's true. But at the same time, there are these media companies are definitely controlled, and reporters have to abide by those, by the rules that are given to them.
Yeah, we're a free society according to socially conditioned aspects of what freedom is, I think.
Very well put.
Because the definition of freedom in itself, is the ability to use one's free will. Now, of course, a lot of people, like with the freedom of speech, they'll take that to the extreme and they'll say, well, I can bash this person and come down on this person and degrade this person, and it's my right because it's freedom of speech. Okay, along with freedom of speech, you also have the responsibility of using morality and integrity, because you have to respect other people's freedom of speech and their freedom to exist too, without stepping all over that. That is part of freedom.
Yes, absolutely. You have to have respect for others. You can't arbitrarily go and slander and say all kinds of things to people, and that's just outside of the bounds of the freedom of speech, I believe, because then now you're actually slandering another person's reputation and so forth, and that causes harm. So there are rules and regulations against that, and I think people should understand that. All right, so we've had an interesting show, and like I said before, I think that we can talk about this subject, and I think we will revisit this down the road. That'll do it for us this time. WTPN presents Building Bridges San Francisco. I'm your host, Mark Mosini, and of course, we have Jerry Davis with us, and from both of us, we want to say have a good day or a good night wherever you're listening to this from.
Good night, everyone.